All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Young Millionaire In Training podcast. I got a special treat for y'all today. This is going to be the first video episode of the podcast. More importantly than being the first video episode, as y'all probably can see if you're watching it on video, I got my homie here on the Zoom with me, um, Malcolm Suggs. Okay, so this is going to be big. I brought him in today. So because I get a ton of questions all the time about cryptos, NFTs, and I haven't put an episode out on it yet. However, I didn't want to miss this particular opportunity because Biden actually signed an executive order last week, kind of focusing on the regulation of crypto and how this could start to impact us. So I wanted to bring in my man Malcolm Suggs, as I call him, more specifically, Chief Suggs of the United States Navy. We give him a little short brag session. Yeah, he don't like it. I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all he don't like it, but he just gonna have to get over it. But I've known Malcolm since I was in high school, and Malcolm is actually a really good example of how you are supposed to align yourself with people, and you don't do that. So, like, we were very I'm gonna call it passively cool, like we would speak and dap up, but it won't like we were just ever hanging out every weekend or nothing like that. And I've told him, like, look, I got him here as an expert, but I told him he like my brother, he a motivator. I said if I knew what I knew right now, everybody talk about starting Google and all this kind of stuff. I would have been in 10th grade talking about Malcolm, you are my best friend. Whether you like it or not, if you don't like it, throw the hands. We'll get past it. Like, whatever. Yeah, throw the hands. I don't care if you don't like it. Yeah, it is what it is. We'll get over it when we run the world in about 10 years. Okay. Don't even worry about that. But I say that to say, man, that's my homie. I always make sure I want to give people their flowers. So I talk to him frequently, many different topics, financial, rap music, politics, fun stuff. Like, and he just been true supportive brother, motivator. So Malcolm, I thank you for that. But a little bit about him. So in addition to just being what I consider to be a crypto expert, he may say otherwise, but I think he's a great crypto expert. And he the one taught me and kind of put me on game with crypto. But he's the CEO and owner of Smoking Peppers Barbecue. So he's gonna get you right on the food tip. Um, he's actually here today kind of as the host of the Mind O'Malley podcast. So that's his own podcast where he breaks down a lot of these different cryptos. He has Wealthy Wednesdays, all these different days that you go, whatever you need from him. He is a very well-rounded guy on his podcast. Okay. Dope rapper and lyricist, reluctantly rapping regardless 2 will be out soon. If you noticed on the intro, you heard the 4-Leaf Clover song. That's his new single that's out. So make sure you head over to Spotify, wherever you listen to music, check that out. And then he does all this while being an amazing husband and father. Okay. So the man is out there. Look, he out here. Okay. So before I let him kind of get into it, y'all heard everything I mentioned. Now watch him get up here and start acting humble, which is actually the beautiful part about Maul, because he understands his worth and value, but he doesn't let it change his values and his core and the things that are his pillars about who he is. So that's the thing that I love him. So with that being said, man, I will shut up and let you talk now. Okay. So what's going on, brother?
Hey, bro. Nah, man, that's an amazing intro. And it's like, I know we kind of prepped this yesterday, and I said I wasn't gonna do it. You said I was gonna do it. You're like, get up here and be super modest. And I said, nah, I'm not, but I'm going to. And it's crazy because it's hard. Like, it's when you in yourself, right? You looking at things from the first person, and you were you. Like, you feel like, yo, you ain't making enough. Like, it ain't never enough, right? I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I'm one foot in everything, and I ain't making no progress. But it's like just mind blowing. Like, when you step outside and you hear about yourself from the third person, like the way you describe me, if I was just sitting around making memes on my phone all day and I heard that it was a dude out there doing all that, I'd be like, yo, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like Nipsey, find your purpose or you're wasting air, right?
Right.
And it's cool because, like, I guess that's like a sort of validation. Like, all humans need validation, right? So that's that sort of validation that I need for those nights and those days where I'm like, because I'm always trying to find the balance between working too hard and being there for my, my tribe and leaving a legacy. And it's validation that I ain't completely crazy, or or just going the wrong way, right? Something gonna stick.
No, absolutely, bro.
yeah, bro, the point you made about like aligning yourself with people, man, like we didn't discuss that. I didn't know you was gonna go there with that, but like
Yeah.
in turn, right? Like you said, it was passively cool. And it's real weird because like when we from the hood, which we from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the hood will have you in survival mode, right? So like none of the people that I'm aligned with today is people that I was aligned with 10, 15 years ago.
Ooh, right.
And you know what I'm saying? That ain't no hard feelings. It's just
Right.
like when you know yourself and you like I knew I didn't know completely who I was, but I knew what I did and didn't want at a minimum when I was back in the projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, coming from where we come from, like, when you're in survival mode, you'll be around people that's like, ain't really your tribe. They're not, you know, I'm always talking about find your tribe, right? That's why, like, and this for anybody else that's out there right now, like, listening, trying to do a business or you got an endeavor or whatever going on, right? Because where you trying to go, the reason you started that thing is because you're trying to go somewhere that you ain't today. And then we mad because we like none of these people around me supporting me, and it's because they can't see or they ain't going meant to be where you trying to go because they don't want to go there. And there ain't nothing wrong with that, right? It ain't nothing wrong. It ain't leaving them behind. It ain't changing on them. It ain't faking on them. It ain't none of that. It's just like we all got our paths, right? And what's crazy is like hindsight being 2020, like going back, man, between you, Ken, Terrell, all the people that I rock with now, right? And like rock with heavy, like you said, hindsight being 2020, man, like Airbnb, Google, Yahoo, that could have been us. But like the hood will really have you like around people because you in survival mode, right? I hope I'm wording this right, man. Like instead of like, because it's the fear of like the unknown and the comfort factor, right? Like I know these cats, I know we're gonna roll up, we're gonna smoke, we're gonna do whatever, and it's hard to get out there and get told no, even not just in a business sense, but like with linking with other people or going through that. Like you said, we probably would have threw hands or butted heads, but going through that to grow through it and then to really be around the people that you meant to be around to fulfill your purpose. So I said a lot, but I don't know. It always brings me back to this quote, man. So that's a quote that I say, man. I actually say it on the in that 4-Leaf Clover song. Don't miss a message because you don't like the vessel.
Ooh.
Right? Like so that's like really the story of how I got into crypto. And that's been the story of like how every blessing that I've got, like you said, I'm super modest, I'm super humble. Like one thing I learned from the time that like I left Kansas to now, at 15 years in the military, is boy, life will humble you.
Absolutely.
If you ain't humble, like life gonna humble you. And life gonna fix people. The universe will fix people better than you ever can, right? That's something like my grandma and the old heads used to say, and I didn't really understand it. And then after going through some of that and being humble, you know what I'm saying, finding humility and being forced to grow, like either grow from that or like yeah, bro. So like don't miss the message because you don't like the vessel. And every blessing that I've like come across is because like I'm just gonna listen, right? I might not rock with you, we might not build from there, but it don't cost me nothing to listen. It could cost you everything on conversation, but it don't cost you nothing. And like I work in information technology, right? So I tell my sailors all the time, like, give me the information, like even if you think I know it already, give it to me, and if I can use it, I'm gonna use it. If it's not an important, I'm like, all right, cool. But like people will like be so egotistical that they like, yo, don't tell me that, don't hit me that. And like the next thing coming out of that man's mouth is how to make on something that's like legit, right? And you shut yourself down because you don't like the vessel, you don't like their delivery, and like you can't put your emotion on the back burner. What's about to come for you, right? And the universe funny like that. That's the humility aspect of it. Is the universe gonna put a lot of those messages in vessels you don't want to see if you really want this shit, the thing you say you want as bad as you do.
Oh boy, see, y'all see why I love my man so much.
I didn't mean to go off on that
right.
bro.
No, you good, bro. That's literally what I'm talking about right there, bro. And because y'all know that as if you hear, then I know you've been listening to the podcast, you've been listening to me talk. Y'all don't know how much I like pour out, and it's so good that I can always have my bro here to call and he can pour into me because these are the things that I have to hear. Because he was sitting over here, I was like, man, I got to make some. Well, I should have brought something to make some notes with. I'm gonna go back and listen to it and make some notes. So
yeah, bro. Likewise.
You actually had mentioned about it a little bit about how you got into the crypto scene. So kind of walk me through that because I know there's been different, you know, there was the 2010 or what was 2013, 2010 time frame, then it was the 2017 time frame, and then we had 2020. So kind of talk to me a little bit about that.
All right, so I was overseas, right? And if you go listen, I gotta plug my cash, right? If you go listen to my podcast, I did a Bitcoin episode where I explain like the context. I'm like, and Warren know this, so y'all gonna understand this about me. I go off on these rants and these tangents, give you the context, so when I make the point, you can understand like how to execute on that point, right? So 2015, I was stationed overseas, man, and I had a civilian that was working out there, and he was in the Bitcoin, right? And we was in this like situation where like we had a watch rotation or whatever, a bunch of people who worked together like 12 hours at a time, and we talked about everything in the Navy. They tell you not to talk about religion, politics, and finance, right? They say those are three things not to talk about at work. And one night, this dude was a real smart dude. He was a network engineer, and he actually had a certification in engineering higher than the one I had, right? And at the time, like he had the engineering certification that I was trying to get. So it's a Cisco certification. And at the time on the planet, there was only like 50,000 people on the planet that held this certification, and he was one of them. And so I was always picking his brain, like, yo, how'd you get there? Because I failed. So it's a four certification test to get there. I'm giving you the context, right? And just the first certification, right? I failed that joint 2 times, and I was an instructor for the material. So I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like I taught the material for 3 years, and I still failed the first certification 2 times. And I'm like, all right, I'm picking this guy's brain. And then so he was into all this libertarian stuff and all this economic stuff. And one night, like one of the routers is broken, right? And he goes to fix it, and he walks through as we talk about stuff we're not supposed to talk about. We talking about the economy and the Federal Reserve and how money is fake and this, that, and the third. And then one of the guys is just talking about, yeah, it's like that fake Bitcoin thing. And his like ears perked up, and he stops and he says, like, what do you say? Bitcoin's fake? He's like, give me a second, I'll be back. And he leaves right for like 2 hours, and he goes fix this router, right? And because it was a high level like outage. And then he comes back and he breaks out a whiteboard, right? It's like 2 a.m. Like people are nodding off, and he just starts explaining, like basically breaking down the Bitcoin white paper in 2015, right? And I'm like, okay, there's something there. And this point going to tie into a point that I'm gonna make a little later when we start talking about is it a good time to get into crypto? That's one of the questions, right? I'm front loading, right?
Yeah, you good.
And I'm like, all right, there's something there, but I'm overseas. I'm in the Middle East. I'm over there trying to make a profit flipping gold. Gold, you can make more. We get pure gold over there, but you can make more on it in the States, because y'all, like over here, we get like 10K and 14K. And over there, like I'm buying like 18K and 22 karat and even straight bullion, right? So the problem that I'm trying to figure out with this gold is like, yo, it's only a certain amount of like assets you can walk through an airport with before you have to declare it to customs. Right. And the whole time this guy explained this whole thing to me, Bitcoin solves that problem, right? Of transportability, right? Because you can have your assets wherever you are in the world. Mm-hmm. It's borderless. Like cryptocurrency solves that problem, right? And I couldn't see the forest for the trees, so to speak, right? And I'm like, all right, yeah, that Bitcoin stuff is cool. And he gave us this whole game, right? And I kind of kept it in the back of my head. And it was too like many hurdles in my opinion, like even as an IT, because I got to set up these computers and I got to do this and that and the third to mine it. And this dude was mining crypto, right? In 2015, he was mining Bitcoin. Like he bought like as many GPUs, graphics processing units, as he could, and he started mining it, right? And then he was buying it. And this was when that joint's like $30, $40, right? And so I put a few $100s into it, right? But I didn't, and that's why this gonna make sense. And I say that now at a good time. So I'm listening to all of this financial advice from people like Warren Buffett. Don't test the depth of a river with both feet, right? So I'm like, I'll throw like $300 or $400 into it. So I do that. And then 2015, 2016, 2017, I come back to the States, and the first bull run happened, right? And then them couple $100, like within days, right? Like now, mind you, I held it for 2 years, right? But within days, I see it go from a couple $100 to some thousands, right? So a comma in there, right? And I'm like, what the hell is happening, man? Like this is crazy. Like all this stuff that he said, because just the basic economics of like when you watch my Bitcoin podcast, I just talk about the halvening and the supply and demand and basic market economics just went into effect. And we talk about why crypto makes sense. It's going to make sense why the market was eventually going to be forced to operate under normal market behavior of supply and demand. So I make this money, I cash out, and then I'm just like, all right, this crazy. Like I'm looking at all this traditional financial advice of like these billionaires, and you know how we be going in on billionaires, right? And I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you like this, right? Like, you can't find me. I challenge your listeners, man. I challenge my listeners to go find me one piece of advice or one quote, because they throw it on Forbes all the time and IG and on these little memes. Find me one piece of advice that a billionaire ever gave and made somebody else a billionaire. Right? We be giving these cats all this credit, like, oh, don't test the depth of a river with both feet. Like, that's a Warren Buffett quote, but Warren Buffett outright buys companies. Right? People think he's an investor and he's like buying a share of stock. Like, no, he goes in, he looks at an undervalued company and he tests it with both feet by buying the company outright, and then reinstalling management or installing new management that can turn it around and then making profit like that, right? So that's my challenge, right? And that's my give back for the cash, right?
Actually, bro, I don't want to interrupt you right there on that spot. No, right there on that spot.
You know, I'll be on these
so yeah, no, you good. So there's another episode that I'm probably going to have more back where we're having a conversation about this. He said something to me a couple of weeks ago and it blew my mind. And when I tell y'all, it is rare that somebody says something about the financial world that like just totally blows my mind. He said, we live in a system that has us, this I'm paraphrasing, so he may want to fix the exact quote, but he was like, we live in a system that has us so messed up and so fooled that we think that we're closer to being a billionaire than we are to being homeless.
Right.
And I said, anybody that's listening to this right now, including myself, I can give you a direct path to you being homeless, but I cannot give you a direct path to you becoming a billionaire.
Oh.
And when you said that to me, I was like, wow. And so when you were just talking about we focus on those so much, and I'm not saying that to say that you could never become, but the fact that you are in a mindset that you think that somehow you could end up being a billionaire quicker than you could end up being homeless just by manifesting,
or hard
really
work.
Yeah, and hard work, right? It really has you like in some very unrealistic mindsets and goals on that. And like I said, I'm not telling people to limit themselves. I'm just saying you have to be realistic, because if you're going to accomplish something, you have to be realistic. So no, I kind of wanted to say that. So let me ask this actually, kind of, because I don't want to get too far off the cryptocurrency. Bro, in the most simple terms possible, what is cryptocurrency?
All right, so cryptocurrency, the second answer is it's immutable, it's auditable, and it's fully accountable money. And yeah, I did go on a tangent. So let me close that one point.
Oh yeah.
So I made some money in 2017, and I was like, this is crazy. I hit old dude up. He was off the grid. He was like, yo, you'll never hear from me again, because he was
right.
He went in, right, and he's well off, right, based on what I know about him. Man, but he told me, he said, there'll be other opportunities. Happy hunting. That's the last time we ever talked, right? And so right then I was like, hey, these old dudes with all these quotes is wrong. There's something new happening. And then I just started researching, and I just went in heavy from 2017 until today, right? I still study and research new projects, right? But I wanted to put a pin in that point, because I did go heavy in the concept. So what is cryptocurrency? It's immutable, it's auditable, and it's fully accountable money. That's the second answer. So what does that mean, like, into the regular people answer, right? It's real money, right? So by taking a blockchain or this source code or this programming, right? The cool thing about computers is they're emotionless and they're not subject to the whims that people are subject to, right? So we're like the United States dollar. If a group of people got together, and we just saw this last year with the stimulus and the printing of trillions of dollars, right? So last year, something like 30% of the money supply was created in 1 year. You get a group of people together, they can decide that that's a good idea. If you code, i.e. Bitcoin or a piece of soft coding, programming, right? That programming ain't gonna wake up tomorrow and say, like, you know what, I think we should make like another million Bitcoin. Because Malcolm's over there hurting, or Warren's over there hurting. It ain't gonna happen. It gives us a level of control over money and financial systems by taking away control from us. Right? So like, think about, like, I got a savings account, right? That it's on direct deposit, a certain amount. I got an emergency savings account that money go into every month, and I ain't got a debit card or credit card for it. I ain't got no way to access, right? So that's the kind of like immutability or like strength or protection that I'm talking about. So even if I got in my feelings and I was like, yo, I want to buy this new Nissan Pathfinder, this account's over there I could cash out for emergencies or whatever. I can't touch it without jumping through all these steps. But eventually I could jump through enough steps and get to it. But with this programming that is Bitcoin, you can't without creating a new chain or forking the old chain. So that makes it real money, right? And in the case explicitly of Bitcoin, there's 21 million based on the way this code was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. And then you can't one day just come out with 21 million and one, or 22 million, or 25 million, right? So in terms of basic market market functionality, there's always going to be a limited supply, and as that supply decreases, it's going to increase the demand for it, which is what we've been seeing over the last 10 years.
Understood. So just kind of to recap that, make sure I'm understanding correctly. So essentially, you said it's real money, and you take out that human aspect that causes the corruption, the collusion, all these different things that can cause economies to go into the trash, and you get a I guess agreed upon computer system or computer software that makes sure it kind of takes care and covers all the transactional pieces that humans normally would, just mess up, like, just to be kind of straight about it.
Yep. And it's fully auditable, right? So you get into these like people that like went into cryptocurrency because they're like, oh, it's private. And then you had these governments that were against it because they were like, oh, people are going to use it to launder money. Like cryptocurrency is actually it's fully auditable. Every transaction that occurs on the blockchain you can go find it, right? Now, the crypto aspect of it is you can't necessarily see that I sent one Bitcoin from Malcolm to Warren, but you can see what address sent it from,
right?
Address 1 to address 2, right? With cash, I could go get $100 out the ATM right now and go do anything, buy drugs, buy a gun, do anything illicit, pay somebody to hit somebody over the head with a glass bottle, right? Whatever you want, right? So it's actually, that's what I mean when I say it's auditable. It's more transparent than money, right? So there's a value in that, depending on which side of the coin you're on, right? If you're the person that doesn't want the things you're doing to be tracked, the value is in dollars. If you're somebody like governments that want to see where money's going, then there's value in that, right? So value is just a proposition based out of things the side of the fence you're looking at things from.
Right. And since you actually brought up the money laundering, I had this conversation the other day with somebody, just in case people think that money laundering still can't happen. With money laundering, you probably hear it referred to washing money, cleaning money, pretty much yep, exactly. Taking illegal money, making it look legal and legit. So in case you think that doesn't happen, just ask yourself why all rich people enjoy art so much. But that's another conversation for another day.
Yes. Right. So yeah, we can so we just hey, and for the listeners, right, man, me and Warren had these conversations all the time, right? I think like 3 years ago we had to like deep dive into crypto, and I just went on my crazy whiteboard of all the strings and putting pins and things, right? And my like super libertarian like conspiracy thing, right? But we've opened up 3 conversations that and y'all get that man some feedback if y'all want to, or y'all give me the feedback and y'all come over to my podcast. We talk about it, right, on either platform, right? We talked about quantitative easing, which is what we saw last year with the printing of, that's the actual term for it, the printing or addition of money into the economy and how that affects economies. We could have that conversation. We talked about money laundering. We talked about immutability and the ability to audit change, right? And like he said, like, so another reason like art has value is because you can't just create another Picasso, right? I can create another dollar, right? If I'm the Federal Reserve or I'm the Treasury, I can print another dollar that matches the dollar that you have. And now effectively the dollar that you have, if there's $1 in circulation, now there's 2, they're worth half of what they were worth. But I can't just dig Picasso up and like be like, hey, spit out another one of those joints, right? So that's what's the word I'm looking for? That rareness is what gives a lot of these currencies or cryptocurrencies value as currency.
No, definitely so. So kind of speaking of that, because I know you actually mentioned Bitcoin a lot. Whenever I do refer to it to people, I typically will use the term Bitcoin as opposed to crypto, just off the strength of from people being able to understand it and not give them too much information. But talk to me about what's the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, or is there even a difference?
right? So I'm gonna hit you with the tech answer, then I'm gonna hit you with the regular people answer, right? So the tech answer is yes, there is a difference, right? So Bitcoin, the OG, it was the proof of concept, right? That said, like, hey, what they were trying to solve with Bitcoin initially was sending peer-to-peer payments without a trusted mediator in the middle, right? So you go to a dealership and you buy a car and you go to your bank, you get a check. That's a trusted third party to say, like, hey, I vouch that this guy has the funds to give to this guy, so on and so forth, right? So what Bitcoin was trying to solve was peer-to-peer payment. So from one person to another that we could trust without a trusted mediator in the middle, because a lot of these mediators haven't remained neutral. So when we look at these banks, right, they initially started off and said, like, hey, trust us. And then over time, they were like, all right, I'm going to do this for you, but give me a little bit more of a fee, a little bit more of a fee, a little bit more of a fee. So the difference between Bitcoin and the other, what we call altcoins, so everything that's not Bitcoin is considered an altcoin. And now because Ethereum has grown so much in dominance, it's referred to as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins. There's 18,174 total cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and Ethereum today.
Bro, real quick before you continue, just to give y'all some scope on that, when him and I initially jumped into this conversation, 3 years ago, there was like 6,000, and now we're at 18,000.
Triple, right?
Yeah, right. So, go ahead.
No, I'm glad you had that number because I didn't have it off the top, right? So there's 18,174 today, right? And like we can see how big it's scaled up in just 3 years. And so like I said, Bitcoin is the OG. Everything else, all these other 18,000, some of them are just garbage, right? And that's what I talk about on my podcast. Some of them are just like ways for people to try to raise money real fast. We call them rug pulls, and then run off with people's money. Others have what they call utility or use cases, problems that they're trying to solve. It's like, hey, Bitcoin was initially created to be a peer-to-peer payments network, right? But what we found out with the way that Bitcoin works and the way that it actually accomplishes those transactions and coins changing from one wallet to another, it's not scalable. It doesn't work at scale, right? So it's something like 7 transactions per second. And you're like, oh man, that sounds like pretty fast. But like, imagine if you were in a Walmart and each one of those transactions was a payment that's happening at the register. So you mean basically for every second, you could have 7 registers open, right? That doesn't scale. So other coins came out to address initially, like, all right, let's do an improvement on Bitcoin, because everything that come out, just like the iPhone, the first iPhone, right? Then you got the 6, then you got the 7, then you got or the 5, all the way up, right? So some of these iterations out of the 18,000 are trying to solve what we call use cases or utility, right? And some of those utilities are exchanges of value, faster payments, and then you got some like the stable coins that are just there to be like a proxy for the dollar, to say like, hey, when you trade out, because you got people trading and making markets in these things, right? Because it's speculation, just like stocks. When you trade out, instead of trading back into dollars, you can trade into the stable coin that holds the same value as a dollar. And what that is in the biz, we call that an on-ramp or an off-ramp, right? So like, because this market's still super volatile, right? So while Bitcoin was doing its $50,000 to $20,000 dance, right? Maybe you don't want to like be a part of that volatility, and then you just turn your Bitcoin to one of these stable coins like Tether or USDC, and then it just tracks the value of a dollar, right? And then when the things like kind of shape up, then you invest back in what you invest in. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, actually, you answered a whole nother question that I didn't even ask and have been meaning to ask you about the Tether US dollar, because I always see it, and because it got TUSD, and I'm like, what is the TUSD? Because sometimes like when I'm moving money around from one cryptocurrency to another or one platform to another, I have to turn it into the TUSD, and I just did it, but I honestly had no idea what it was or why I was doing it. And this is actually why he's so great, y'all. Is what I'm saying. I had no idea about that.
So I'm gonna do this, right? So because I know your listeners probably like listening, and I know some of my, because of all the context and background, like my answer's all over the place. But I hope that I initially give that context and come back and give the answer, and they can take they're able to digest what I'm saying. So with USDT, it's one of the 18,000 coins. It's a stable coin. It tracks the price of a dollar. And I'm gonna leave it at that, but I will refer you to my podcast. And you know what I'm saying, I'm throwing an alley up from Young Millionaires In Training, because I did a whole breakdown on USDT and some of the advantages and disadvantages of it.
Nice.
So I don't go off on another tangent, right? And lose people
understand.
from the core of like us just talking about crypto and NFTs. I refer them to that, and I'll give you the link for that.
Also on that, because I did not mention that at the beginning. All the links to all his social media, my social media, of course, too, but all his social media the pages, everything will be down in the link to or the description of this episode. So make sure you go there, like, follow, all that good stuff through there, and definitely tap in because it's a ton and tons of content. Look, even because I know that's not what we hear about. If you just like to look at food, the brother cook on the internet. Like you ain't even got to listen to none of this stuff.
Man's gotta eat.
The brother sit up and cook on the internet. Because I think I threatened him about 2 weeks ago. I was like, bro, stop cooking, bro, because I keep getting hungry every time I go to your page.
I'm trying to work on the barbecue side, y'all. I'm trying to work on getting this stuff to where I can ship it to people that want to order. But we do got a barbecue business out here in San Diego. Excuse me. And I'm waiting for my license to come back. Because San Diego just approved the ordinance that lets you do a food business from your house. Excuse me. So I was at a small business seminar for that yesterday. And if you're local in San Diego County, hit up Smoking Peppers. Let us hook you up. We cater. We do plate sales. We do all kind of stuff, man. And I just because I love good food, and I got tired of being a Carolina boy like Warren and not being able to find like good barbecue or stuff that people were just throwing off in the oven and slapping sauce over. So I broke my smokers out and I made a business out of it. But not to sidetrack on that.
Actually, bro, I got one more sidetrack. I'm sorry. I do, bro. Dead ass. That breakdown that you put the other day talking about barbecue and how we look at it in North Carolina, as opposed to how we look at it like everywhere else in the country, like what barbecue means to us, bro. When I tell you I screenshot that, and I probably sent that to 20 people. Like I probably sent that to 20 people. No, bro, because I keep trying to explain that to people. I'm like, bro, because y'all keep talking about barbecue and like that's not what I'm thinking about when you say that to me. When you say that about
pork,
right?
Yeah.
So anyway, back on topic.
So this how our conversations be, man. So
we'll be all over the place.
Because I know I'm his first guest, and he's gonna have to figure out his format because he got a great podcast. But our conversations we be everywhere, and then we be right back to what we discuss,
So just stay on that.
I apologize for my contribution to that.
Nah, that ain't your fault, bro. They love me, man. They rock.
We be vibing, man. Like that's my dog, man. We be vibing.
Yeah, I was like, this he is actually my friend. Like he's not just one of these people that you keep scrolling on social media. Like he's actually my friend. So, bro, to the executive order, because that was the main piece that I wanted to make sure that I hit. So, talk to me about this executive order that Biden did last week. Kind of regulating crypto or whatever it may be doing to crypto, concerning crypto. Let me kind of say it like that.
All right. So everybody get some 10-4 real quick. Make a hat. Because I'm going to go into some of my like libertarian economics and tell you like why. So with this executive order, so if you don't know, President Biden just signed an executive order on cryptocurrency. And it wasn't actually regulation, but it was guidance to all of the different not financial organizations, but enforcement agencies and Congress in the United States for like coming up with a plan to regulate crypto, right? And I was wrong. I did like a 30-minute video on this EO and what I thought was coming out of it. And I'm gonna tell you why I thought it was coming out of it, right? Where I said like, yo, this thing is gonna be crippling to the crypto industry. Like, go ahead and make your money. And the reason is because like, for you gotta understand, like this 11-year-old space, right? So we just talked about how cryptos have tripled in 3 years from 6,000 to now it's saying they're 20,000, right? Almost 20,000. And then in this time, people have made so much money. And when I say people, I'm not talking institutions, right? I'm talking people like me, you, Warren, the listeners. Like you saw these people making millions of dollars in Doge. And my 10-4 hat told me that like the country we live in, going back to that, you have a better chance of being a homeless veteran like me than you have to be a billionaire. That like these institutions, for the first time in our lifetime, they got front ran by regular people, right? So you look at any market, any financial market, like they got it sewn up, right? You got the JP Morgans, you got the Wells Fargo, all of them, they got it sewn up. And then we come in and we make our little bit of money. But for the first time when crypto came out, regular people had the opportunity to get wealthy before the institutions did. And in a lot of cases, when you look at, once again, these billionaires, right? Warren Buffett, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, who's Jamie Dimon? Chase?
Yes, Chase.
Right. They were wrong, right? In 2013 and 2012, like Warren Buffett said, like Bitcoin is rat poison squared. And if you listen to that and you were like, I ain't buying Bitcoin because this billionaire who already got his billion, right, said that Bitcoin was like rat poison in 2012, 2014, and whenever he said that, if you did the opposite of what he said, you'd be a multimillionaire, right? If you took all your money and you just said, yo, this dude don't like it, I'm going in on it, you'd be a multimillionaire, right? At least. And so that's like what really influenced the way I was looking at things, like from 2017 on. I was like, yo, these old cats wrong. Either they wrong or they're not being honest with you, which is the same thing, right? So that questions my credibility, right? So Jamie Dimon said he would fire any of his bankers that were invested in Bitcoin a few years ago. And now all these banks coming out trying to get Bitcoin services and crypto ETFs for their clients to invest in. And it's like, yo, either they just didn't know what they were talking about, or they knew, they told us not to do it, and then they went and loaded up, so now they can sell it back to us, right? So,
bro, real quick,
yep.
kind of insert or excerpt, should I say, or no insert. So, because you brought that up, in 2017, could I actually want to validate what he's saying? In 2017, I worked at Chase. They sent out internal guidance to them. I was a mortgage banker at Chase at the time. They sent out some internal guidance to us telling us this, okay? This was the reason why I personally was so bearish on Bitcoin, because they sent out all this guidance, pretty much like it's a scam, don't get caught up in it, like we don't want you all involved in it because you could influence our our client base to get involved in it. They're going to come and ask you questions about it. We don't want the liability, we don't want all these different things on it. And so for me, I was super bearish on it. On top of that, to the point where even when I did my own research, it doesn't really make sense from a financial standpoint. So in 2017, if you had asked me about Bitcoin, I would have blatantly had told you no, it didn't make sense from a financial standpoint. Also, because I was being heavily influenced by me being an employee at Chase, because what he's saying is totally true. By me being an employee at Chase, I too did not necessarily look at it for the idea of it. And it literally took until a couple of years ago, at kind of the beginning of COVID, and we may get into that, but at the beginning of COVID, when I was reading that stimulus plan and they mentioned in there about a digital dollar, and it clicked in my head like, oh, if they do a digital dollar,
what's going on?
Then Bitcoin, I was like, no, I was like, all that is a different name for Bitcoin, essentially, not officially, but essentially, like we're in the same arena, we're playing the same game now. And so for me, it was that thing of, let me find out what's really going on. And once again, this is why I kind of have Malcolm on the show, and I'm gonna let him get back to it. But what he helped me do was bring the technical piece and the history piece to my financial side, and now I could see it like just very blatantly, clearly how this worked. Because part of the reason why it didn't work for me financially, you just mentioned, it's only 11-year-old space, and you're talking 3 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
7 years, yeah.
Like I don't have any context to go off. We haven't seen anything like this. They're going to shut it down. Like, or every time we've seen anything similar, the government's going to step in and shut it down before it gets too big, because they don't want to let anything get too big. So for me, but anywho, got off on that tangent, but you were kind of talking about maybe they did know what was going on, and they just kind of pulled.
Either they didn't know because they were wrong, or they knew and they weren't being intellectually honest, which like for you, I always tell like people like, yo, it's 3 sides. It's like 3 sides, right? It's the right side. I mean, it's your side, their side, and the side that benefits you. Like, so I was like looking for the side that benefits me. And at the beginning of COVID, that's when we had our conversation, because you called me up and you said, yo, explain this stuff to me. And the thing that the thing that instantly clicked for me is I was like, for how bearish the world was on it, I saw from as a IT, as a tech, that they couldn't stop it. If they could stop it, they would have. Right. And and when I saw how the code was written and how the blockchain actually worked, like I was like, wow, like they really can't stop this, because you would have to stop the internet to stop it, right? And like, that juice ain't worth the squeeze, right? So when that clicked for me, I was like, oh man, there's something here. So going, and then I'm always like, here, I said my 10-4 hat. I'm always looking at like, why are you telling me this bad? JP Morgan, like, why are you telling me this bad? Because it threatens your pockets, because your pockets and my pockets ain't the same. What's bad for you might be good for me, right? What's bad for Warren Buffett, right? Like Warren Buffett's business model doesn't work if all of us become billionaires.
Right.
So he don't have an interest, and I keep picking on him. Like he doesn't have, these old guys don't have an interest in telling you what's going to work, because now you're in direct competition with him, right? So like a 35-year-old black dude from lower class guy that has the same financial pull, it just don't work for them, right? So I had my 10-4 hat on, and then when I looked at the tech, I was like, yo, computers don't care. And all these financial markets, they're all rigged. We saw that in the 2008 market crash, right? So when you saw the 2008 market crash, when no bankers went to jail, regular people lost their homes, right? And actually, when you look at the impetus for why Bitcoin was created, it was because of frustration with that system.
Yep.
Bitcoin was created in Satoshi, and these guys got together and they were saying, hey man, these guys playing inside baseball over here, and common people don't have a chance. So let's come up with this. And then that's why, like when I looked at the tech behind it, because it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to deliver on it. And when the tech lined up with it was congruent with the sentiment, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a problem, right? And so I just went deep into research, invested a little bit, made a little bit, lost a little bit, right? And here we are today. So like we're on this podcast because of conversation me and you had almost 3 years ago at this point. And so the question was the executive order. I was wrong as hell, right? Because I had my 10-4 hat on, and I was like, man, like for 10 years, this new market, this nascent market has like blossomed up, and regular people are getting rich, and the government don't really know which way to go to stop it, right? And that's a threat, like, because you look at things like decentralized finance or DeFi, right? DeFi, there's crypto projects in DeFi or blockchain projects where you can make, man, there's some that's making up with a 6,000% APR, right? Regular people, you can put regular money up, and now I'm not going to get into the nuance of whether I think they're good projects or not, but I'm just telling you what's happening, right? There's people that's making 30% APR, and then your bank's giving you 0.05% on a savings account, right? That's problematic, right? So I put my 10-4 hat on and was like, man, if this game is as rigged as we think it is, like this executive order is going to come out. And then there's another side of it, right? So there's regular people getting rich and front running institutions, which institutions and all this lobby money and the Congress, the people, how they pay all this lobbying money, it's not in their business model to allow that to happen. Then the second thing is there's a certain aspect of consumer protection, right? For as much as we hate the SEC, there's a certain aspect of consumer protection that like cryptocurrency doesn't address, right? With some of these projects where people putting everything in because they say like, hey, you get 6,000% APR, just put your money here for 30 days. You put your funds in there, and it's a rug pull or liquidity pool. They pull out liquidity out and they run off with your money, right? So the government also, to some extent, can't stand. I'm not even gonna be libertarian here. The government can't stand back and let that happen to regular consumers, like, or it'd be the Wild West, like we were talking. And honestly, because these old people, like I'm always like bashing on boomers, right? I honestly didn't think, I was super bearish on the executive order because I didn't think it was going to paint it with any nuance. I thought the executive order, and I said this on a like 30-minute cast that I did. I was driving around with my son screaming in the back, and I was just talking on like my thoughts on it and how I thought it would get executed. And in my execution of this executive order, I thought it would just say like Bitcoin bad, all these other 18,000 things bad, right? They're different because that's how different things usually get treated by humans, right? And let's lock it all down. Let's regulate by enforcement, and then let's turn things back on, right? Because as a IT, if I had a network that was under attack, that's what I would do. I would turn everything off, and then I go through it. The things that are deemed that pass or fail, I turn them on. It's easier for me to control. Like me just letting everybody do whatever they want and trying to figure out who the bad guys are. So I thought it was going to be, hey, Joe Biden, shut us down, Joe. Shut everything down. let's get a handle on it. And then obviously when their idea of getting a handle on it is picking winners and losers, just letting innovation take place and the truly good projects rising to the top, right? So I was super bearish on it, and the EO came out and it's the opposite. It's almost completely the other end of the spectrum of what I was thinking, right? Which is validates the space even more to me, because once again, if they could shut it down,
they would.
If EO would have said, let's shut it down, right? So either you're acknowledging that it can't be stopped, right? And in this executive order, so what he's given is guidance to all of these different agencies and Congress to say, let's come up with a framework that makes sense. So in this arms race, because you got to think artificial intelligence, and you talk Tech Tuesday on my podcast, I talk AI, machine learning, I talk Web 3.0, I talk cryptocurrency. These are the tools of the future, right? And if America isn't the leader and innovator, we're going to get left behind. If America regulates by enforcement and shuts everything down, if I'm a startup and in the crypto space, I can go to another country that's more friendly, and I'm gonna take that innovation there, and that country's gonna reap the rewards, right? So from an economic standpoint, because a lot of these projects are economic based, right? And it's a $2 trillion nascent asset class, right? We hit almost $3 trillion this year, and now we're down for right now because it's kind of bearish. But you ain't letting $3 trillion walk out your border and go to Singapore and that become the hub, or go to the UK and that become the hub, or go to the Middle East and that become the hub for all that innovation, because people are going to flock there. Your smartest and your best and your brightest, especially with the way things, the great job exodus are happening right there. They're going to flock there. They're going to build there. They're going to get rich there, and that money going to stay there, right? And then now with a new industry, this industrial revolution type shit, right? Excuse my language, like talking like cotton gin type stuff, right? Is what this technology is, right? You ain't letting that lead the United States. So what his approach is like, hey, let's let the United States be the leader, kind of similar to how about 20, 25 years ago, we did that with the internet. So the way I look at this industry is, it's 1995, and it's before the dot-com bubble bust, right? Because out of these 18,000 projects, some of them are garbage, right? A good majority of them are probably garbage. And then some of them are solving an actual problem, and they're going to be around. And then there's some that haven't even got started yet that are going to be around. So if you're looking at things on a macro Mondays, because your next question was, is now a good time to invest in crypto?
Well, actually, before you go into that, so you actually were bringing up something I was going to say about that Doge for a second. I actually want to talk about that because I want to talk about me and Doge. So when I talked to Malcolm a couple of years ago about this, when I said he brought into the tech piece of it, the part he just explained about how it actually looks and it's possible to do the things that it says it does. But the other piece that he really talked to me about was usability. So whenever I look at a project, I'm always looking at what problem does this project solve. So fast forward, you get Doge. Doge was one of those ones where it was super popular. It was, of course, started as a joke, but it doesn't fix the inflation issue. It doesn't fix a couple of different things. So I didn't care anything about Doge. Like, I even talked to a couple of people. Matter of fact, bro, I went back and apologized to a couple of people for telling them not to invest in it. Which I guess kind of in total hindsight, I wasn't totally wrong, because if they did and didn't get out at the right time, now they right back trash.
And right and wrong in this space right now, because it's all speculative. It's so subjective.
Right. Well, bro, what I said, because when I went back and I was like, I'm sorry for telling y'all not to do it. I was like, I was wrong, but I don't have a way of knowing that Elon Musk was going to get behind this and back this. I don't have a way of knowing that.
Hindsight 2020, right? And Doge, like, and so out of these 18,000 projects, right, there's a minority, man, I say like a couple hundred, that if you invested in at any time, you would have just got absolutely wrecked. But for the most part, like you said, we said right or wrong is subjective, because it was a wrong investment if you get out at the wrong time, right?
Right.
But it's a right investment if you were in Doge. Like, so if you look at what Doge is, it's a clone of Litecoin. And the problem that Litecoin solved is Litecoin was one of the first altcoins to try to solve the Bitcoin scalability issue, speed of transaction, peer-to-peer payment issue. So it was just a copy of that code. So innately, it has that functionality in it, and it actually became more popular than Litecoin which is where its source code comes from because of the goofy dog meme.
Right.
So depending on like what type of outside the box framework and thinking you like subscribe to, hindsight, you could have had the foresight to be like, hey, this is going to be a thing, right? And then when you got the world's richest person come in on top, right? But that's all in that shoulda, woulda, coulda thinking, right? Like, for the most part, like crypto, like you take the top 200 projects, man, like if you would have bought any time in the last 6 years and held for 3 years, you would have never been down. You would have been down,
right?
But if you held for a minimum of 3 years, and I think Richard Hart said that about Bitcoin. He's a CEO of Hex, and he was like, "Yo, you wouldn't have lost at any point holding Bitcoin for 3 years. 30 days, different. 90 days, different. But if at any point since Bitcoin came out, you held it for 3 years, 4 years, you would have made more than what you started with, right? So, yeah, bro. Executive order. I didn't think it was gonna come in and paint any of these things with any sort of nuance. I thought it was just gonna be a broad stroke, and it's not doing that, which tells me that one, they can't stop it. They've acknowledged that it's integral to the future of our economy and our dominance as a superpower, right? And so now I'm looking at it like the way if we was this age in '95, we would have been looking at the internet, right? The Googles, the Yahoo, the AOLs, right? And the pets.com, because there was some bust there, right?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, a lot of these joints is gonna the same way the internet did, right? A lot of these joints ain't no gardening.com, ain't no pets.com right now. I mean, the domain's still there, but these are some of the worst things you could have invested in. But at the time, they were like, yo, invest in that. And maybe that's Doge. Maybe that's Bitcoin. Maybe that's Cardano. Who knows, right? But overall, EO paints a very optimistic picture for the space.
Okay, so which does bring us to our next one. So, of course, not financial advice, okay? However, if you're a new investor, because like I know a lot of my followers, listeners have not invested in crypto at all because they've asked me, so I know they haven't. This is the first time they got it, like an in-depth breakdown of some things about crypto. Is it a good time, do you think, to get into crypto? So I'm talking literally when we finish this episode, they're going to create a wallet and get in.
All right, so look, they say the best time to plant a tree is when?
20 years ago.
What's the second best time?
Today.
Today, right? Yeah. So like we said, not financial advice, but $3 trillion market. Anything that do $3 trillion in 10 years ain't a fad. It ain't a fad. It ain't something that's just going to come and go. And I'm not talking about individual projects. I'm talking about the space as a whole, right? So I want to make that distinction, right? So what does that look like, right? A lot of people are taking this approach and they're saying like, yo, I'm going to wait till the regulation come out. I'm going to wait till, so you got to understand when you wait till the regulation come out, you wait till the rules come out, what's going to come with that is the same thing that's in the stock market. They're going to come in and fix the game. Like, you think that regulation going to be made in a vacuum where they just like, hey, let's make this thing and just make it accessible and equitable for everybody? No, like they're going to get JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all these people in the room, and they're going to say like, all right, let's fix this to where it's advantageous for us, right? And an example of that, as you can see, a lot of these companies, and I ain't gonna use specifics because I ain't got the specifics, but a lot of these companies that are saying like Bitcoin to $1 million. Now, whether it do or don't get there eventually is beside the point. But Bitcoin to $1 million. They saying that now, but 5 years ago they were saying it was too. You know what I'm saying? They were saying it was a fad, it was a bust, it was a scam. And I'm like, so I want you to step back, and I always say ask better questions, right? If you're telling me now that your sentiment changed that much, why? It's because they bought it at $30,000. And now they need you to buy it at $100K, thinking it's going to go to $1 million so they can recoup on their investment. Right. So the best time to buy plant a tree was yesterday. Second best time is today, right? Do that in a way that makes sense, right? So in my cash, I don't do predictions. I don't do price predictions. I have people approach me and be like, yo, invest for me. And I don't do none of that because like peace of mind ain't worth it to me, right? Because one, human's greedy, right? If you give me $100,000 and I turn it to $1 million, you're gonna be like, man, well, I wanted 10 million, right? Or if you give me $100,000 and I lose it, which I'm not even allowed to do that, like from in terms of security laws, then you're gonna have a hit out on me with your next 100K, right? Because I lost your money, right? So people want to wait until it ain't no risk. But fortunes ain't made when it ain't no risk, right? People want to wait. Like, I mean, shit, was it a good time to buy Tesla in 2019? Right, yeah, but it was probably a better time when it was 2013, 2014, And it was a pleasant, you know, or whenever they first went public, right? And like you ain't gonna make no money, you ain't gonna take no risk, wait until it's regulated or wait until everything gets set up, but you also ain't gonna make no money, right? So what my advice to people is I don't tell you to buy projects, I tell you to research, do your research, right? Research, look at things that you believe in. It's just like Warren talk about all the time. If you use it, you could own it. You should own it, right? There's people who are migrant workers that send money home through Western Union and they pay 10% of what they make to send money home. If there's a project out there trying to solve that problem, and there's a few of them, we talk about them with my cash, right? And that's something that like, hey, I don't like sending fucking excuse me, I don't like sending Western Union and getting hit for 10%. You could do this cheaper. Like, I'm probably gonna look into that and say like, all right, and then you got to do it in a way that makes sense, right? I tell everybody, man, if you never invest what you can't afford to lose, right? Because everybody wanna put $1 in on Doge and become a billionaire. Like, life don't work like that. Like, you got to take some risk, but you should take some calculated risk. You should take some measured risk. You should take some smart risk. Like, absolutely. Like if nothing else, right? You eat 2 combos a week, value meals, right? Like $20 a week. That's $100 a month, or you know, I think $25 a week eating out. You can afford that. Do what you can afford to lose, right? Dollar cost average. Take the same amount of time. Take the same amount every time you get paid. Put that to the side, and maybe 5% of what your overall investment is like that, right? Like, it's all about like the risk to reward, right? Like one part of my investment portfolio, and it's been for the longest, 0.5% of everything I invest, right? I played a lotto with. That's my risk profile, right? So like, and it's like crazy. Like, so if I invest $1,000, right? So 0.5% of that is saying on $10, right? Or, you know, or excuse me, let me use easy numbers because I can't math right now. So 0.5% of 100 is 50 cents, right? So if I invest $100, 0.5% of what so I could scale that up, man. Like, I just a factor of 10.
Yeah, $5.
Yeah, $5, right? Like, I put that towards the lotto, because like, yo, if I hit the Powerball, like, the risk reward is justified. But now I'm not gonna go in there and put 100% of everything I invest on the Powerball every week, right? And that's just basic, like, financial,
right?
Like, you know what I'm saying, like, knowledge and understanding risk and profile, man. But I think with crypto, man, like, is it a good time? Like, yeah, man, like, especially for I know it's us as Black people, like we stand to be left out again. So like, this is basically a reset, right? Economic reset, right? And we stand to be left out by not understanding the internet, not understanding tech, not understanding the financial implications of what's happening around us. We stand to have a new financial system, because a dollar on its knees, right? Like, we just printed all this money. Something got to change. Everybody in debt. Student loan debt is out there. The country in debt. Russia getting cut off with sanctions, right? And like, something got to shift, right? The pandemic crippled all these economies, and when it shifts, and some people call it a reset, or it shifts, or it gets fixed. We as minorities and people of color stand to once again be left on the outside of this new system, and to be disproportionately, like, you know what I'm saying, like, what's the word I'm looking for? To be disproportionately, like, disproportionate, just in terms of assets of what we own, right? I just drew had a weird like blank, man. But so yeah, man, like, I think if nothing else, like, getting into it, like, yeah, like you spend $25 today on McDonald's or Smash Burger or whatever it is, right? Like, start somewhere. Start with what you can afford. Scale that up. Like, I believe in it, man. When I tell you I believe in it, like, my barbecue business, I'll tell y'all this, full disclosure, man, because I want my boy podcast to go up. And me and Warren had this conversation. Like, part of the money profit that I make from my barbecue business, I use that to invest in things I believe in, and crypto being one of those major things, right? So like, you'd be surprised, like, where you could find the money to get into this space, because a lot of people sitting around, like, I talk to people, and they and that's why I started the podcast, because it was just an opportunity cost for me trying to explain to people, like, because they don't want to take the risk. Like, all right, well, invest with money that ain't a risk. Like, you got a bunch of old dressers in your house on offer up, invest with that. You got a bunch of quarters. Hey man, at one point, like, when I knew that bull run was coming up in 2020, right? In 2017, 2018, I was collecting coins. I just had a bag of coins. I rolled them joints up. $50 worth of quarters here, $50 worth of quarters. I took them in my bank. When they hit my account, I threw that joint in crypto, right? And it's crazy. Like stimulus checks, like invest with everybody out here hustling. That's the economy we live in, right? Like, don't tell me that you can't afford to. Don't tell me you can't take the risk. Like, cut some of them subscriptions off, right? Like that $16 or $20 or whatever. Because me and Warren, we was all sharing a Zoom account, right? Because I had a paid account at the beginning of the pandemic because I needed it for my job, and the Navy won't pay me to do that, right? And then I cut that joint off. I told him, I was like, hey man, I'm cutting it off. I'm going back to the free model. Like, that's $16. Invest with that. Like, so yeah, maybe you can't afford to do it with your paycheck because I mean, but that's just hustling, man. Like, and in terms of like passive return on your investment, right? Like, you could go out here and hustle and flip bicycles or sell tacos or whatever it is all day long, but like make your money work for you, man. So like, if
absolutely,
you know what I'm saying, if you make a couple hundred here or there, like stimulus checks, like man, like money, because a lot of people say I don't need it, but we was getting it, right? Because we paying taxes on it, right? Tax return, like, man, put some. It's just it ain't so much investing in crypto. It's investing in a vehicle that's gonna take care of you. The same way stocks are, same way everything else is, right? So you got this nascent asset class, 10 years old, $3 trillion going away, and if you're sitting around waiting for like 4 years from now for all this regulation ahead, like, yeah, it's gonna get regulated and it's gonna be legitimized and everybody's gonna be in on it, but all the risk gonna be gone because all the reward gonna be gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what else to tell you. They just named Staples Center the premier NBA arena
crypto,
Los Angeles Lakers, right? They just named it crypto.com arena. Like, what else are people waiting? I'm getting passionate about it, man. Let me think of what else are you waiting for as a validation, as a validation that this ain't going away, right? They named it crypto.com arena. They didn't name it Tesla arena. They didn't name it Apple Arena.
Amazon Arena.
He's the biggest Amazon arena. They named it crypto.com. It's the premier NBA. And the reason is we can have a whole different conversation about this is because crypto and sports are such a good fit, right? Different conversation, different day.
Well, actually, we may get into that a little bit in the next section anyway, when we jump into some NFTs. So last question, kind of before we go to our break and skip it, and skip to the next conversation. Piece. Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, that's what it's really
I was getting hyped.
So
don't wait, man. Don't wait.
How do you think inflation and the devaluation of the US dollar will possibly be impacted by, or will have an impact on crypto's ability? So it's kind of a two-part question, but however you want to go, because you already been kind of hitting at it some anyway.
All right, so ask the question again.
How do you think inflation and the devaluation of the US dollar will possibly either be impacted by crypto, or the fact that it is decreasing and being devalued will impact the ability of crypto to thrive? Is kind of the question. You can go either direction you want to go with that one.
Hey, so at this point, right? So you said almost 3 years ago, we was reading that stimulus bill, right?
Yep.
And it said, I think it said, I'm gonna paraphrase, research, R&D into the development of the U.S. digital.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then and so when they put that in there, they knew they was about to print a couple trillion. And that you gotta, if it's me, I gotta be like, yo, is that in there? Because we gotta think about the back end. So when you go to print a couple $1 trillion, somebody in the room gonna be like, how we gonna figure this out? Because that's just gonna massively increase. It's gonna lead to inflation at some point. And I want to hope that our government was smart enough to be like, all right, we gotta have an answer for this, because the can ain't gonna be able to be kicked. We gonna be dealing with it. It ain't something that's gonna get kicked. You print $2 trillion in a couple years, you ain't kicking that can 100 years down the road, right? Which was the old answer. Is like, hey, let my grandkids deal with it, right? Like, so that was in there for a reason, right? That was in that bill, right? And then this executive order come out, right? So now that's why I give y'all context, man. Then that executive order comes out and it says that we need to embrace it so much, so to speak. We need to get all these organizations and agencies on the same page, and the United States needs to be a leader in this nascent asset class, $3 trillion, right? Size of the crypto market is almost the size of how much money got printed in the last year. So that's neither here nor there.
I hadn't even noticed that myself.
So this grassroots market grew to $3 trillion, right? based off of mostly retail and institutional, a few institutional investors, right? Because you got to understand, a lot of institutions ain't winning this space because there's no regulation, and they don't want to be on the wrong side of things if it turns out that you were investing in something and you didn't follow SEC securities laws, right? So this $3 trillion grassroots, this is like really grass. Saw like a few million, I would say like 60 million get raised for Ukraine, right? And the size of this nascent asset class is almost the same size of how much money we printed off in the last space of 2 years. That's neither here nor there, right?
So look, I know he came on here, bro. I'm about to say something totally off. So he came on here, he told you, I was like, my brother, he got to come on here and be my first interview. Bro, I got to get one of them little soundboards because I need one of I need one, bro. Oh, bro, I hadn't even noticed that one myself, and you are spot on. I had not even paid that any attention because I knew the 3 trillion and I knew the 3 trillion, and I had never even put that correlation together.
It cancel out. We keep talking about debt cancellation, this and the third, right?
Ooh, I had never even put that correlation. Well,
I ain't gonna go super tenfold on you, but I'm gonna bring it back to the answer, right?
Yeah.
Where does that put the US dollar? The dollar is in trouble. We know that.
Agreed.
The dollar is in trouble. Something gotta give, right? Between his predatory student loans and all these people that are in debt that don't want to go work all these jobs that we need filled for the economy to keep rolling, something gotta give. Like push comes to shove, like we always talk about, when push comes to shove, them motherfuckers is meeting right now. Push and shove is right here right now, right? You know, and they pressing us, right? So something got to happen with the dollar. $3 trillion asset space. They was looking at it at least 3 years ago. 3 years later, EO comes out saying, let's be a leader and an innovator. They're researching a digital dollar. Where do I think that put the dollar? Excuse me. I think at some point, like when we get past the constitutional questions of like privacy and government monitoring and government overreach, I think, man, I really don't want to go down this rabbit hole. But when you look at the economy, right? Like, so, all right, I will answer this question. Name a fiat currency that has never failed. Name a currency that I'm not talking gold coins because that's gold. I'm not talking about silver Roman coins because that's silver. That's an asset-backed currency. Right. I'm not talking about the US dollar on the gold standard, right? Which is every dollar is backed by gold. A fiat currency in the history of finance has never not failed. I'm sorry, not a fiat currency. A fiat currency not backed by
something. So for those, I talked about it in the earlier episode in case people didn't catch it, that fiat currency is when you essentially, it's monopoly money, okay? All it is a representation of
IOU.
Yeah, a representation of value that we all have agreed upon. So what he's referring to is the US dollar used to be backed by gold because we all heard about the gold standard. Correct me if I'm right.
Meaning you could take $1 to the bank, and you could say, "Hey, give me gold in exchange for this," and the dollar had to be exchanged for gold, right? And we went away from that.
What was that? Was that 80s? 70s. Okay, I couldn't remember.
When we got rid of the gold standard, right? So 60s, 70s. It actually happened in the 70s. Okay. Being tossed around, right? So we got rid of the gold standard, and now today, I'm sorry, I'm just going to add context. Your dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. I don't know what they TransUnion looking like, but if it's looking anything like Warren talking about on the podcast, right? And the people with the gas prices looking like, I see some of the TikToks, man. It's funny, man. Like, but it's safe to say that the full faith and credit of the United States government. What does that really mean? People starting to ask that question. What does it really mean?
Well, bro, I had that conversation with somebody because I said, let's say that it was still based on the gold standard, which is not, but let's say that it was, because I've had people kind of refute me on that a little bit. Because for what it's worth, I am going to actually have a episode where I talk about the Fed, I talk about prime rate, I talk about all these different things a little bit after we get through some of these basic conversations. However, I've had people kind of refute me on the point about the gold standard. I said, let's say that there is still a gold standard. We know Fort Knox. I was like, have you ever seen the gold? I was like, how do you know they're not guarding an empty building? How do you actually know that? I was like, because they're not going to let you in there to see it. I was like, y'all telling me about a gold standard and y'all never even seen the gold. How do you know it even exists anymore? I was like, how you know they ain't shipped it all out to China? How do you actually know? That same full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
Right. So let's separate two things right there, right? So like the dollar is not pegged to the value of gold. But that's not saying that the United States doesn't have gold reserves.
Right.
Similar to like how Putin spent years building up gold reserves because he knew he was eventually going to do what he's doing now, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's important to make that distinction because like people oftentimes confuse the gold standard, meaning the dollar being pegged to the value of gold, with
having
the gold, with having gold, right? And that full faith and credit, it's kind of like Devo is like, yo, you know what I'm saying? That bike, I didn't know you wanted it back, homie. So the full faith and credit of United States government. So like you said, you're asking these people like, yo, like, have you ever seen the gold? Like, it ain't no country on this planet that's gonna come tell the United States like, yo, show me the gold. For all this debt that you owe me, show me the gold. Because the full faith and credit, what it really means is we can bust their ass militarily, right? And as a sailor, I can tell you like, yeah, we could bust their ass militarily, right? So like if push came to shove again, right? It could potentially put us in conflict with somebody demanding to see that, right? So yeah, let's make that distinction. Like, don't confuse the pegging of the dollar to an asset with having those assets in reserve, right?
Right.
So we make that distinction because yeah, push come to shove, right? You got these digital assets, and one thing that digital assets are good about are really cool that you can be used for, as we said, that we can create a immutable blockchain, so where you can't make any more or any less, right? It's and these some of the things that some of these circles that some of these crypto projects that they talk about is maybe the dollar goes back, the United States dollar. There's a digital dollar alongside the paper and the metal coins, right? And those assets are then pegged to either a digital asset or underlying asset like precious metals that is tokenized and represented via the blockchain, right? So that solves the problem in a way, right? That's one way you can solve it. I'm not saying that's the only way you can solve it, but that's one way, right? So where does that put the dollar in inflation, man? Like if we don't figure something out, the dollar ain't gonna be worth nothing. And just the things that are happening, right? Like I trust that it's being at least talked about and discussed, because like you can't be the one superpower on the planet, right? And people are going to be like, well, what about China? What about superpower, right? So like, let me go into my military bag, right? What I mean by superpower is in these 4 pillars and what we call national strategy, right? Diplomacy, information, military, and economically. We are the only country on the planet that has the ability to project power in all 4 of those domains beyond our borders. That's what defines the superpower, right? Globally, right? China, yeah, they got a big economy, but they can't project power in all 4 of those domains anywhere in the world like we can, right? So I would like to think that we're asking this question as a country, and we're saying like, because one of the things that we've fallen victim to like over the last few decades is this thing called American exceptionalism, right? So you look at like the massive inflation that's happening in Venezuela or in Zimbabwe, like you can go overseas and buy a freaking $1 billion Zimbabwe note. That's supposed to be $1 billion of their money. But what happened is that was possible because they just decided to start printing money and what we call quantitative easing and introducing money into their economy that wasn't backed by anything. And then they suffered super inflation, kind of like how Venezuela is suffering, right? And American exceptionalism says like, oh, we're Americans, that can never happen here. And that's the way you think if you've never been outside your county limits, right? If you're from like Hodunk, Alabama, and you're just like, oh, American propaganda, that can never happen here. So it absolutely can happen here. And I honestly, and you've heard me say, I honestly don't even think we're feeling the effects of inflation. What we're feeling are the effects of a strained supply chain due to the pandemic and corporate greed. But when that inflation hit, right, and a war that threatens to destabilize the whole world, right? But all those things considered, like inflation, like it's got to be answered. And like I just told you, there's a way it can be done with using this technology, right? Because this technology is transformative, right? I told you, like it's transformative. You're looking at the internet, and they throw Web 3.0 around, right? So another version of the internet, and we know that the internet was a boon for the United States economy, right? The biggest companies in the world right now, right? Where a lot of the value are from companies that cut their teeth the rise of the internet from 95 to now, right?
Bro, so kind of to close this out, because no, that's great, and I agree. Kind of
I hope I
talking
answered
about
the
that.
question.
No, you did. Speaking on that
Okay.
piece, you were talking about inflation, where you were like, we're not even really seeing it yet. It's that supply chain issue, and then also coming corporate greed. So y'all know, I've done a couple of episodes talking about inflation. I'm constantly talking about the CPI, the consumer price index, how that's changing. Part of the reason why I'm talking about that so much now is, yes, you're seeing the difference in prices, but what you will start to learn about the financial world, everything typically happens anywhere, depending on the scale, 6 months to a year out. So the reason I'm talking about it so much now is because you are within that 6 month time frame where you have a chance to prepare before, because once that 6 months, it may be the start of it and it may not quite feel like it, but once it starts, we're there. So that's why I'm talking about it and beating it in the head. That's why I even had him on the show to talk about this executive order. That's why that specific question was put in there, because you're within that 6 month time frame where you're going to start feeling it, because it takes about that long for it to really start showing some impacts and effects, depending on how well you have prepared prior to that. So just kind of, go ahead.
And let me interject, right? So
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
not saying inflation is not real, right? What I'm saying is the effect what we're seeing, inflation is being used as a scapegoat to justify people doing some grimy stuff, right? And I honestly, man, as much as we bash our politicians and Republicans and Democrats and they can't get anything right, they stand to lose as much as we do, because most of them are multi-millionaires as we do if super inflation happens, right? So to protect their fortunes, I like to think, if nothing else, with the incentive of like it not affecting them, right? So you can feel how you want to feel about politicians, but I want to think that they're smart enough to be seeing this nail sticking up down the road, so to speak, and understanding that you just printed. So shoot, I'm just a enlisted sailor, right? I know that printing $2 trillion in 2 years ain't good, right?
Right.
So I like to think that all of these things lining up and leveraging this technology as one of the means to figure out our way back from the pandemic and this war and this economic tools that we use to kind of ease the pain of the pandemic is being considered, and that there are solutions on the way, right? So we don't see things like $30 bags of rice like Venezuela.
No, I thank you for that. So we're gonna take a little break here. Of course, if you're rocking with us on YouTube, we're just gonna kind of go right through. But if you're listening to the podcast, we are gonna take a little break. The song that you're getting ready to hear during the break is Mally J music, 4-Leaf Clover. So make sure that you definitely listen in for that. Check it out. The album dropping soon. Do you have an official release date for the album yet?
Hey, so the single's out, available for pre-order.
Okay.
3/17, St. Patty's Day, 4-Leaf Clover. Y'all see what I did there? The song's available on all streaming platforms, March 25th. And the album should be coming out. I'm trying to get it out April. I don't have an official release date for the album because we're in post-production and mastering. And as soon as I get that, then which should be in the next couple weeks, then we'll have an official album release date. But enjoy the single for now. Follow me, all streaming platforms. And I got some heat coming y'all way.
All right, bet. All right. So of course we are back here and switching gears a little bit more. So we're still in the crypto space. However, we're in the space of now NFTs. So I did want to touch on NFTs because people talk about those. He mentioned Ethereum earlier. That's a big major player in the NFT space. So I did want to make sure that we gave you something on NFTs as well. So Mark, tell me, what are NFTs, man?
He stands for non-fungible token, right? And that's the tech answer. And the regular people answer for regular people like us is it's an asset that basically can't be duplicated, right? So a unique, non-copyable asset, if you will.
Okay. So what's one thing that you just really feel like new investors need to understand or know about NFTs, in your opinion, just whatever it may be?
Hey, so I said, like, for the regular people, right? It's a non-copyable, or it's a unique asset, right? Taking a JPEG that you can find on a Google search engine and slapping a serial number on it, right? Like picture a meme of me like this, right? Taking that picture and slapping 1 through 1,000 serial numbers on it don't make it unique, right? So like a lot of the things in the space that are being called non-fungible tokens and NFTs, now you got to understand this is an offshoot of the crypto space that's even newer than crypto. So it's got to find its legs, right? So if you think about like crawl, walk, run, like a child, right? It's in the crawl space. A lot of the things that's being sold as NFTs aren't truly non-fungible. And in other words, like, and even more layman's words, are garbage. So buyer beware, man. Once again, I'm a mirror. I saw a really good interview with Richard Hart, the CEO of the Hex token, and he summed up like what I was feeling for like 3 months. I just couldn't find the words for it, and I'm gonna paraphrase him where he said like, if you could sell an NFT right now, good for you. Do it, get your money. If you're buying NFTs, I'd be careful. So that's like, as a new investor, that's what I want you to think of. You're making an NFT, get your money off, right? Because it's a closing window, right? And I'll tell you why that window is closing. Is because some of the biggest issues that I have with NFTs are the downsides, right? So this space, remember how crypto came out and it outpaced it still ain't no regulation for crypto 12 years later, right? But it's going to come. There's going to come a time where the things that people have done, like these rug pulls and these assets, like robbing people and just some of these wrong things, right, are going to have to get answered for. And maybe not all of them just because of how massive the space is, right? Which is why my executive order thoughts was like, hey, just shut it all down. And then you like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what did it say? Kill them all, sort them out later, right? Like that kind of attitude. But the same thing with NFTs, right? So, an even younger space at around 3 years old. And it's outpaced any sort of regulation, intellectual property rights, any way to dispute like private. So there's a metaverse project called like NFT Slave, right? So like just, and then, yeah, I get free economies and the libertarians gonna say free markets, but some things are just morally wrong. There is one called Floydies, right, which is like a collection of memes of George Floyd that's making fun of this guy that got killed, right? Which is why I said black people got to be in this space, right? So they don't just run off with it. They don't do the Addison Rae thing and TikTok it and run off with it. And then we left on the outside while they making money off our pain and suffering and by dehumanizing us, right? So I don't care like what political stuff you want to talk, like humans should be treated as humans, right? Like I don't care what your stance is on the George Floyd thing. That was a human being that lost his life through an act of violence. And regardless of what side of the coin you stand on politically, murder or a human being killed by another human is always regrettable. Right? Whether it's justified or regardless. And I'm going on a tangent, but I'm coming back, Warren. Like, so some of these projects that are out here, right? The NFT space has really outpaced any form. There's nothing that's stopping you from taking that song that you just heard, that's mine, creating an NFT on it, selling it, and then taking the money. Right now, I can come back and sue later. But one of the things about crypto is, first of all, I gotta find who's done it, who did it. Right. So the fact that like intellectual property, so as an artist and a creator, intellectual property rights and enforcement of that is so important to me. And the space has really done a good terrible job, because you want to build fast, run fast, and break things. But these platforms like OpenSea, they haven't done a good job, and they're going to get forced to where they have to answer for like, what is your process for verifying a project that gets minted and verifying that the person that's minting that project truly owns that project, right? So I got a cousin that's an artist, and if he ain't in the crypto space and following all these weird podcasts and this stuff like that we talking about, I could take a piece of his art, write a piece of sports code, smart contract, NFT it, get paid from it. Then every time it gets sold, I get paid from that. And then there's really like very little he can do to ever find out that it was done, one. And if he does find out that it was done, to enforce it or to receive any type of get back or retribution, right? Retribution is a bad word, but any type of like justification, right? Or justice. So that's something I advise people to be careful of with NFT, man. Like if you could sell them and you selling your stuff, right? Don't go take my song. Don't go take one podcast and then see it, right? Because I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna find you, right? And I'm gonna get mine, right?
Yeah, and if you steal it, I'm gonna send it tomorrow to find it so he can so I can get
right.
Back,
y'all not about to play with me. I need my backing, right? So in all seriousness, man, like if you can sell an NFT, man, move fast before all of this regulation comes in and it cripples you, or you just get back in a position to where the rules get put in place and they're not equitable to people of color or minority people or just poor people, right? So if you look at like Ethereum and the gas fees on Ethereum, right? Ethereum is getting to the point where for regular people, unless you're Kanye West, like for what it costs you to make a sell an NFT, it's not equitable. It's not justifiable, right? You're making $600 off a piece of art, but the gas fee is $200, right? So move fast in that space. Be smart.
Two things. This one hopefully be a quicker answer, so I asked this one first.
Sorry,
just because you brought it up. No, you good. Gas fees. Tell people what gas fees are.
All right, so gas fees is a cost that blockchain charges you to basically complete a transaction. And then in times of higher demand on that blockchain, it's just like right now, right? You go to a car dealership, and I was shopping for a truck, right? And every dealership I went to, they were like, yo, there's a $5,000 market adjustment. Why? Because there's not enough vehicles to go around for the people. So that's what a gas fee is on the blockchain, right? There's not enough bandwidth, essentially, to settle these transactions. They got a backlog of transactions, so then they adjust the gas fee and change the price, right? And really, if you're not a programmer and you don't know where to look, you don't know if that's true. Like, hey, I'm charging you $100 to settle this transaction because there's a lot of demand on the network. If you don't know where to look to see that, like, once again, comes with that equity piece, right? Like, which I think there are projects out there with these gas fees, right, that are taking advantage of people.
Oh, bro.
But the bottom line is you gotta research. You gotta get smart on this stuff, man. Like, you see all these MSNBC articles talking about like 9-year-old made like $30 million selling art. Like, all right, yeah, that, like more people gonna lose money than can gonna make money. So, and you gotta, just like any other investment, man, you gotta know what you're investing in. That's the best investment to ever make, the knowledge of what you're investing in.
Ooh, bar. I need my. I told you, bro. I gotta get my button. Yeah, I need my little button, bro.
I'm sorry.
No, you good. I was actually laughing because I was you were talking about searching for your truck, and I was thinking about that post you put up the other day that had people mad.
Man, look, bro. Come on, man. I ain't gonna go down that road, bro. So, like, yeah, hey, look, that's crazy, man. Like, I was going to these dealerships, every dealership, and somebody was like, yo, if you go to the dealership, it's like, no. Like, and that's why I said it's not inflation that's telling you like that a new Pathfinder is $5,000. It says market adjustment. I was like, what does a market adjustment mean? And they were like, oh, that's just so you're taxing people. You're adding a tax on it because you can, because there's a shortage of chips. That ain't inflation. That's corporate greed. So now that the gas price is $6-7, right? You said everything happens 6 months to a year. These gas prices, and they get hurt, and they in the corner, and now the vehicle stops flowing up because ain't nobody gonna go buy no 15 miles per gallon vehicle or 20 miles per hour vehicle for gas at $6. And then the tables, turns gonna table, right? And when them tables turn, I'm gonna go see them and be like, hey, you still got that market adjustment? All right, give me a. So that's being a smart investor, right?
Right.
Like, LLC Twitter taught me that.
Yeah, LLC Twitter. Bro, I haven't even gone off of here on my. I'm doing all my foundational episodes right now. This is probably my first one. Twitter, man. Yeah, I hate LLC Twitter because everything. Yeah, I'm gonna do an episode on LLC Twitter.
It ain't the hustle that I don't respect, man. It's the half-bakedness. Like, they half-baked. They half-ass things. They get people in trouble, and then it's people profiting. So, like, morally, it's the lack of morality that makes me hate LLC Twitter, right? Like, take your time, learn the ins and outs, give people the tools. Like, but don't be trying to run off on people because it takes advantage of them. But I digress. Man.
Yeah,
I gave some really long answers. I hope y'all listeners don't charge it to Warren, charge it to the way my mind works. That's what my podcast called Mind of Mally. He's running a great platform and a great show.
I appreciate you.
And I hope y'all getting something out of these answers, man. And feel free to hit his comment if there's something that you didn't quite explain or I explained. I try to do the tech answer, right? Because understand I'm a IT by trade. I'm a network engineer by trade. And then I'll try to break it down to the like, all right, because IT is specialized sense. And then Malcolm is talking in common sense, right? So a lot of this stuff, like, you'd be like, oh, it's common. I hate when people say, oh, it's common sense. Like, no, it's specialized sense. Like, you were in a field for 15 years that allowed you to be able to look at Bitcoin and say, hey, that makes sense. right? Like,
I'm actually glad you brought that up because I was literally sitting here getting ready to say I forgot to mention that during your short bio that I gave at the beginning. So part of the reason that I had him come up here and talk about this, because y'all know how I feel about these slushy technicians. You made me think about it when you brought up LLC Twitter, because I was like,
my slushy away.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Y'all know how I feel about these
slushy machine
and all these Egyptianpreneurs, because I was like, yeah, I could have went on Facebook and who knows something about crypto and NFTs, and every slushy technician and Egyptianpreneur would have came out.
Forex / Bitcoin. It's like, you don't need to invest with anybody to invest in crypto. You don't need anybody.
Right.
You can do it right now from your phone for free. Don't pay anybody to invest in crypto. Don't pay anybody for hot tips and VA because nobody knows. There's no utility in this market. It's all speculation. It's all horse race. Pick the prettiest horse to you. Put what you can afford to lose down on that pretty horse. And when that pretty horse comes out in front, not wins the race, but when it gets out in front, meaning gets up, get out that horse, sell that horse, and pay your freaking tax.
No, that wanted to stop you, bro, because you giving bars. That's my
Like, do not get into crypto and make money in crypto. And especially if you're on platforms like Coinbase and Robinhood, because they report to the IRS what they paid out. Right? You're gonna get a 1099. Do not evade taxes in crypto. You're gonna do everything right and you still gonna get audited.
Yep, Don DeMarco.
Right? I got audited. I did everything right. I reported everything I made. I paid all my taxes and I still got audited.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's because the IRS came out and said a few years ago, they said that they audit poor people more than they audit rich people because rich people have the resources to fight them. So it's just cheaper for them to come for me. Yep. Right? If you make 6 figures or less, right? So pay your taxes, man. So my bad, Warren.
Yeah, no, you good. Cut you off. No, that was good. Yeah, that was you dropping bars, bro. That's why I needed. So you kind of actually got into this one a little bit. Oh no, I had an additional question. So then we'll come back to that one. The second question after the gas fees that I had, smart contracts, because we didn't really talk about them during the crypto piece, but it's really applicable to the NFT piece. So talk to me a little bit about smart contracts and crypto. When he broke it up, before I let you go into it, when he was mentioning about taking the human aspect out of crypto, or crypto taking the human aspect out of economics or financial transactions, smart contracts kind of alludes into that. So if you could kind of talk about those some for me.
Right. So smart contracts, I'm gonna once again refer you so I don't go all the way down the rabbit hole. Right. I did a real long breakdown. It's like over an hour long when I talked about Ethereum, because smart contracts are essential to how Ethereum works. So I did a Ethereum ins and outs, like an hour long. But how they work is basically it's a piece of code, right? A piece of programming that you can write to meet any conditions, and that if those conditions are met, then it executes another set of conditions. So, for instance, right, I could tokenize. We've been talking about cars, right? Title for a car, and I could say like, hey, and I could write a contract that says like, hey, this title for my car will be transferred to Warren once this condition is met. And the condition could be that he pays me $100 a week for 8 weeks, right? And then we put that on the blockchain, or we put that on the internet technically, right? And as long as, and then I can also write that smart contract to say like, to be able to verify when that transaction occurs, right? So every week it's tagged to, I don't want to say bank account, but it's tagged to this information that's auditable, information that says like, okay, $100 came out of Warren's account and hit Malcolm's account or his crypto wallet, right? And then on the 8th time that happens, that smart contract, think about it like a digital escrow. That smart contract will execute the second set of conditions that says like, hey, condition has been met that $800 has been transmitted on a weekly basis from Warren to Malcolm, and now I'm going to transfer this title to Warren. And the cool thing about that smart contract is one of the benefits of it is it's good in situations like where you need something like a escrow, because I can't renege on it, Warren can't renege on it, or I can't say like, hey, I want to go back and change the conditions after the fact, right? So it gives trust to both parties entering a transaction, right?
So what you're saying is, if I buy you if I'm buying a car from you and I'm supposed to send you $500 every week for the next 8 weeks, on week 7 you can't just stop answering the phone.
I just sold you a cheap ass car. Yeah, I can stop answering the phone, right? I said 100. I undercut myself. So I could stop answering the phone, but as long as you meet the conditions for your side of the smart contract, that contract's going to execute.
Mm-hmm.
And because the token and because the title is now digital, it lives on the internet, I can't go in and say, hey, give it back to me, or try to run off on the plug, so to speak. That's the world we go into, right? Mm-hmm. There's people on both sides of transactions want peace of mind, right? Mm-hmm. Y'all done met up with somebody for an offer up and been like, hey, I'm gonna sell you this item or whatever it is for $100, and then you show up and they trying to give you 80, right? Mm-hmm. Or God forbid they show up and they got this, right? On them and they trying to say like, hey, it's going for free today, right? So smart contracts brings trust to for the financial side of things. It brings trust. It takes away the problem of having to trust the party on the other side for both parties, right? And now here's the downside with that. They're only as good as the person who programmed them. Oh. So, and that's where you see a lot of these hacks or these exploits take advantage of smart contracts, because there's something that you do in programming. It's called an audit, right? So I write a piece of code and then I have somebody else with a second set of eyes look at it. But a lot of these people rush these smart contracts and they rush them and they don't code them properly. And then they put the contract up and they share it with me. And then I start looking through the contract and say like, hey, it say I'm supposed to send this guy $100 or $500 a week for 8 weeks. And then I get this digital asset or whatever it is exchanged to me. But oh, look, they left a loophole in the bottom that if I just hit the freaking 0 key 4 times, it'll make the contract automatically. And that's like a very rudimentary example. It'll make the contract execute the condition that says send the title me. So that's how people get robbed through smart contracts, because they're, once again, they take the human element out of it, yet they're only as good as the human who programmed them.
Understood. Nah, thank you for that breakdown.
Yeah. And to go super deep into it, yeah. I got the Ethereum.
Yeah, that was actually going to be the
Ethereum. And
I was going to jump to this last question actually, about that, asking you. So, of course, your podcast, that's our main, or your main place for like breakdown. Because I know this was a long podcast for us. However, he goes actually like super into depth. Man. Yeah, he goes super into depth, like in some of these very individual concepts. So even if something seemingly went over your head, whatever the case may be, check his podcast out. The link is in the description. Bro. Now, with that being said, what's something that they is there anything that people need to like read or need to watch or do anything before they come listen to your podcast, so that it doesn't just like totally go over the head if they were to start in the middle, is what I'm kind of getting at?
Yeah, I love this question, man, because it's a question that we talked about. The answer to this question, you already know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so look, man, like I'm gonna tell y'all, like I operate somewhere different, man. Like my podcast, I don't do no price predictions. I don't do no buy this. I don't do no buy that, because like I told you, like no matter how it worked out for you, it's not gonna work out for me if I do that. Right. And then morally, I couldn't do that and take advantage of people for the sake of views or checks, and then sleep at night. And then if you do it to the wrong person, like I'll be walking out my door to go to work and get shot in the face, right? So because somebody not gonna listen, they're gonna do the opposite of what you say do. They're gonna put all their stuff in, they're gonna lose their whole fortune in their life, and then they're gonna blame you for it, right? So I'm very conscious about the way I put information out, right? And what I want when I'm putting this information out, I'm gonna answer your question, Warren. What I want when I put this information out is I want people to be, I want to equip people, right? Because I honestly believe if I give you the right information and the right way to think or where to look, then you're gonna find the stuff that works for you, right? And be where you're supposed to be, because that's just how the universe works, in my opinion. So I tell people, like, I don't care if you don't watch my podcast, I don't care if you don't come listen to me, but if you want to get in this space, man, like there's a couple resources I give everybody, right? And you got to do some legwork, right? So I said at the beginning, like everybody want to just put $1 down on Doge and then wake up a billionaire. And then the thing that I hate about the crypto space, I hate the toxicity in the space, right? Not only do people want to put $1 down on Doge and become a billionaire, but after they do that, they want to say, I told you so to everybody that didn't listen to them. And that's one thing that I hate about this space is like, it's not good enough for people to just make their money and change their lives and set their family up for generational wealth and just get out the way. But they got to come be nasty to people and say like, because it's tribalism. It's 18,000, like it's a drug, right? It's 18,000 choices you can make. And I want to pick the one so I could tell Warren, see, you're not as smart as me, right? And my ego ain't that big, right? So that's one of the things I hate about this space is the toxicity, right? So everybody want to put down $1 and reap $1 billion of rewards for nothing, and then they want to pat themselves on the back for how smart they are. But what I try to equip people with is that like I'm gonna give you some good information, but you gotta put in some real work if you're trying to change your life. Like ain't no free lunch, right? Because yeah, you might have got lucky on Doge by taking minimal risk, but like it ain't happened yet. It ain't been nobody it's been very few people that like it's worked out for them where they like took the route of like, I'm gonna take very minimal risk and I'm gonna get very well paid for it, right? And you know that those are those people because they're in your face about it. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like nobody that put real work in, took real risk, watched their net worth dip to like 3% of what they started off with and was like, oh shit, man, is my family gonna leave me because I fumbled the bag? It's gonna like go through that, make it on the other side of that, and then like throw it in somebody's face. So I'm gonna tell you to put in some real work, man. I tell people, man, like it's one of my favorite movies. Watch The Big Short. Right? So it's a really good movie, man. It's such a good movie because it's got Christian Bale in there. It's got Steve Carell in it, and it's about these guys that saw the financial market crisis happening, and they shorted it, right? Which had never been done in American history, right? So like, if you're trying to be extraordinary and you're trying to go somewhere, you got to do something people ain't never done, right? I told you, like, go find a billionaire's quote that made you another billionaire. These guys made billions of dollars by doing the opposite of what they were told to do, right? So my thing is like 99 people going down one road, right? 401k, IRA, and I ain't knocking these tools. They're a way to get there. But like, if everybody was going, all of us were going to get rich and financially independent doing that, they wouldn't be telling us to do that. Because if everybody's rich, nobody's rich. Right? So I always take everything with a grain of salt, and I'm a little bit of contrarian, right? But watch The Big Short so you can understand the context of, because when you watch The Big Short and the fallout of that housing market crisis, then you'll see why in 2010, Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he or she is, or they are, were so disgusted with the system that they created Bitcoin. And then from that, it morphed into 18,000 iterations of what it is, right? So start with The Big Short. The next thing I'm gonna tell you to watch is it's a free documentary you can find like probably on Amazon, might be streaming on Amazon. I know it's on YouTube, but it's free, right? It's called Banking on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I watched it on Amazon. I watched it on Amazon. For what it's worth, he gave me this exact same list a couple of years ago, like we referenced, and I watched all of these. So that one is on Amazon, unless they took it off. I watched it personally on Amazon. It's free. Everything on this list he's giving you, I personally watched and it helped me tremendously because he told me a whole lot. But as you can see, it can be a lot. It can just be a lot of stuff.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And the crazy thing is, like for me, I was finding these things like months apart. So now I'm giving it. Now it's a gift, right? I'm gonna give it to you, and you can watch one day. You can watch another one next weekend, right? They're pretty entertaining documentaries and movies. So The Big Short, Banking on Bitcoin, and then I always tell people to start with the OG, right? Because you got to know where you came from and know where this whole thing going, and then that helps you look at things in a macro. Read the Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. Read that white paper. You're gonna go through it. It's gonna have all this technical jargon. When every time you hit something that you describe or a concept or a text that you don't understand, highlight it. Then Google it. Highlight it, Google it. Highlight it, Google it. Highlight it, Google it. And or go to YouTube and Google that term, because there's somebody up there that's explaining it in layman's terms, or what I said, our regular people terms, right? And I think you can work from there. And then once you got that context, historical, what led this thing to become a market, a $3 trillion market now, right? That's the high that it's hit. what happened to the first one through the door, the first people that were investing in Bitcoin, because some of them cats in prison, right?
Yep.
For illicit things and all kinds of stuff, right? And then like the vision of what Satoshi was trying to do, what he was able to do with Bitcoin and what he wasn't able to do, right? And that's where you're looking at like, so like I said, in 2017, when I talked to old boy, he was like, hey, happy hunting, you never gonna hear from me again. I was like, all right, let me look at Bitcoin again. So I went back and looked at it and I was like, yo, there's a lot of stuff this asset don't do. And then I looked around, started looking around, was like, hey, is anybody solving this problem? And then at the time, it was like 3,000 projects. And then I just started from the top one and I just started reading every night. You go on CoinMarketCap or whichever crypto market you follow, CoinMarketCap, CoinFreaka. Most of these white papers are listed right there. Like, so you hit the Bitcoin and you scroll through all the information. It'll give you a history of it, what started it, who founded it. It'll tell you how many are out there, all the metrics, price of it, and then it'll still like a link to the white paper, man. I just literally like took the first one. I started with Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and I just went all the way down the list, like every day for like 3 years, right? So I did all the nerd stuff, and that's what I'm divulging in my podcast. That's what I talk about. But I'm never gonna tell somebody not to look for themselves because, like, don't believe me, don't invest in any of this stuff because I said it. Invest in it because you saw it for yourself and you believe in it, or you see there's some value there, right? Because I don't need your money. I don't money's like, I'm not saying that because I made a lot of money or anything like that. Like money's not a motivator for me or a driver, right? I'm playing a different kind of game, and that's a whole different talk y'all can hear on Wednesdays on my podcast. But yeah, man, start in those places. And then if you do like something that I said or you like the way I break it down, man, give me a follow, man, and follow me on the podcast. Ask some questions because like I'm honestly passionate about this space and passionate about the stuff that y'all can probably tell how long my answers are. I'm passionate about the stuff I talk about, and it ain't no skin off my back to talk about it or answer questions because it actually gives me content to make, right? Content to make and discuss, man. But I thank you, bro, for giving me the chance to talk, and also for bigging up my platform and letting me plug it on your joint.
Oh, absolutely,
like
bro.
so many times, man. But
absolutely,
man,
bro.
the thing I really hope, man, is I hope that people get something out of this. The best time to plant a tree was yesterday. Second best time is today. Start where you at. I said DCA, but that's dollar cost averaging, right? If you in the stocks, TSP or 401k or IRA, man, $20, $30 here, right? Because we know it's not going away. And the worst you could do is make some money. The best you could do is make some money. The worst you could do is lose something that you could afford to lose anyway, right? And like, you know what I'm saying? So like think about like 4 years from now, if some of these things you get in the right projects, right? And even if you just took a crap shoot, right? You just hit the top 10. I don't know, maybe you want to go about it that way. And you just put $10 on the top 10 every week for the next 5 years. And you lost all of that, right? That's really minimal to what you could stand to gain if any one of those like breaks out and becomes the next Bitcoin, right? Because in my opinion, something's going to Bitcoin because of the limitations of Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin started off as peer-to-peer payments. When that didn't work, they said, oh, it's a store of value, it's digital gold, right? And they shifted the narrative around Bitcoin. And we could talk about that I talk about that on my podcast too, right? So now the question that I'd be asking is like, all right, so if it started off as peer-to-peer network payments and that won't successful, what is going to be successful at that, right? If Ethereum was supposed to do X, Y, Z and it ain't successful and going to ETH 2.0, what's going to fill that void? If Ethereum is failing as a smart contract platform or as an NFT platform, and there's cheaper places to do smart contracts or NFTs, what are they? How much are they? Are they affordable? All right, let me get some of that. So when all that unequitable shit, like those, which is what's happening right now on ETH, those developers move off that platform and say, hey, I'm going somewhere cheaper. And that brings an influx of capital. And if you were going somewhere cheaper before they got there, you stand to make some money, man. So best case, you stand to make some money. Worst case, you stand to lose something that you could afford to lose, man. Be smart. Research.
No, that's great, bro. No, I definitely appreciate the information, man. And like, nah, you know, bro, what's mine is yours, bro. So I don't have no problem. You know, you're welcome back because we're gonna have you back. Because listen, the thing, after the license get done, I gotta have them back as Smoking Pepper CEO. Like, yeah, I gotta have them back for that. So we still gotta talk about that. Because we gotta talk about actually because a lot of my followers and listeners are interested in starting restaurants, interested in doing that. And so I actually want you to talk about the business side of that Also, like, how do you start up a business, going about some of those license. We got to talk about ghost kitchen, some of those kind of things. So y'all gonna see him again. Yeah, so y'all gonna see him again probably real soon.
Hey, no, I appreciate that, man. I hope y'all got something out of that listening, man. Like, keep following this dude, man. He a good dude. His heart in the right place, man. Like, we don't do this for money, right? We don't do this for money. We do it because we know, like, if we give the right value out, right? And I could have a whole different conversation about like how the internet changes value propositions, right? Like that you're gonna get what you're meant to get, right? So like, there's enough on this planet for everybody to have enough. There's just not enough on this planet for everybody to have everything, right?
Absolutely.
So like you know, he come from, I rock with him so hard because Warren has an abundance mentality. So you read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. Talks about the difference between abundance mentality and scarcity mentality. And abundance mentality changed my life. By adopting an abundance mentality, it changed my life, man. So I hope y'all got something out of that. I hope my answers weren't too high level. Ask questions in the comments if you need to. But don't miss the message because you don't like the vessel, because Mal talks too much. Don't miss the message because you don't like the vessel. And it's 2 hours long, man. Like, please sit through it. Y'all probably, if they already checked out, they gonna hear that, man.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I might just go ahead. I'll probably split it up into 2 pieces for him.
All right, man. I'm sorry it went so long.
No, you good.
I know I can give a lot of context, but I feel like y'all need it if you're like new to this. And I hope I explained it at a level that you understand.
All right. Well, thank you so much, brother. I love you. I appreciate you.
You too,
Thanks
bro.
for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, bro.